It was just past midnight when Amelia Collins pulled down the blinds of Moonlight Brews, the small corner cafe she had been managing for 3 years. The wooden clock on the wall ticked softly, marking the end of another long day. Her back ached from standing, her hands were sore from wiping tables, and she was more than ready to lock the door, slip into her worn-out coat, and walk home under the cold September sky. Running the cafe wasn't easy. The owner, Mrs. Green, was kind but strict about costs, and Amelia often ended up working late because she couldn't afford extra staff. Most of the customers had been regulars, college students pulling all-nighters, couples seeking quiet conversations, and the occasional night owl with a laptop. By midnight, the street outside was empty, the hum of the city softened to silence. Amelia turned the "open" sign to "closed" and picked up her keys. That's when she heard it. 3 soft knocks against the glass door. Her head snapped up. At this hour, a tall man stood outside, dressed in a tailored charcoal suit that looked far too expensive for this part of town. His hair was neat, though slightly tousled as if the night had worn him down. The streetlight above him cast a glow on his sharp features, defined jawline, piercing eyes, and a faint shadow of stubble. He didn't look like someone lost or dangerous, but his presence was commanding, almost out of place on this quiet street. Amelia hesitated. The cafe was closed. She should ignore him. But something about the way he stood there, waiting, not demanding, just calmly watching, made her pause. She cracked the door slightly, keeping the chain latch on. "Sorry, we're closed," she said, her voice polite but firm. His eyes softened. "I know. But could you make an exception? Just one last coffee." Amelia blinked. "It's midnight." He smiled faintly, a tired kind of smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "I've had a long day. Honestly, the longest in a while. And for some reason, I was walking past and saw the lights on. I thought, maybe a coffee could help." Something about his tone, genuine, almost vulnerable, made her hesitate again. He wasn't acting entitled, like most wealthy men Amelia had seen on TV or read about in magazines. He sounded human. Still, she glanced at her watch. "One last coffee," she repeated, almost to herself. He nodded. "Just one." She closed the door, unlatched the chain, and let him in. The faint scent of expensive cologne mixed with the aroma of roasted beans still lingering in the air. "Take a seat," she said, motioning to a booth near the window. He loosened his tie and sank into the chair with a weary exhale. Amelia moved behind the counter, turning the machine back on. "What'll it be?" she asked, pulling her hair into a bun again. "Black. No sugar." He leaned back, watching her with curious eyes. "The strongest you've got." She nodded and began preparing it, the hiss of the espresso machine filling the quiet. Normally, she avoided small talk with late-night customers. But something told her this man wasn't ordinary. "You work late," he said finally. Amelia gave a small laugh. "Someone has to keep the lights on." He tilted his head. "You own the place." "No, I just run it. The owner lives out of town. It's my job to keep everything going." There was a pause, then he asked, "Do you like it?" Amelia stopped mid-motion, thinking. "Some days, yes. Some days, it feels like it's all I know." She placed the steaming cup in front of him. "Here you go." He wrapped his hands around the mug, inhaling the aroma before taking a slow sip. His shoulders relaxed almost instantly. "This is good," he said. "Really good." Amelia smiled faintly. "Glad it passes your test." He studied her for a moment, his expression unreadable. "What's your name?" "Amelia. And you?" There was a flicker in his eyes, almost like hesitation, before he answered. "Daniel. Just Daniel. No last name." "Well, Daniel," she said, wiping down the counter, "what brings you to my cafe at this hour?" He chuckled softly. "A restless mind. Too many decisions, too many people waiting for me to choose right." "Coffee feels simpler than all that." She raised an eyebrow. "Sounds like you're in charge of something big." "You could say that," he admitted. "I run a company. Or maybe the company runs me. Depends on the day." Amelia froze for a second, trying to place him. His suit, his way of speaking, the calm authority, and then it clicked. She had seen his face on a magazine cover once, in the grocery store aisle. Daniel Hayes, the billionaire CEO of Hayes International, a global tech giant. Her heart skipped, but she didn't let it show. Company or not, she said casually, you look like someone who hasn't had a good night's sleep in weeks. Daniel laughed, and this time, it was warm. You're not wrong. He took another sip, then glanced around the cafe. This place, it feels real. No boardrooms, no investors, no noise. Just coffee and quiet. That's why people come here, Amelia said softly. For the quiet. For the next half hour, they talked. Not about business, not about money, but about little things. Amelia told him about the regulars who ordered the same drinks every morning, about the old jukebox in the corner that barely worked, about her dream of one day opening her own bakery. Daniel listened. Really listened, his gaze steady, his questions thoughtful. At one point, Amelia asked, don't people like you have assistants to fetch coffee? Why wander into a small cafe like mine? He smiled. Because assistants bring coffee. They don't bring moments like this. The words hung in the air, heavier than they should have. Amelia felt something shift inside her, a strange pull she couldn't explain. By the time he finished his cup, the clock was striking 1. Daniel stood, slipping on his jacket. Thank you, Amelia, for the coffee, and the company. She nodded, trying not to look flustered. Anytime. Well, not anytime. Midnight is pushing it, he grinned. Fair enough. He pulled out a business card and placed it on the counter. If you ever need anything, supplies for the cafe, a connection, even just advice, call me. No pressure. Amelia glanced at the card, her breath catching at the name printed in bold letters. Daniel Hayes, CEO, Hayes International. She looked up, but he was already at the door. Good night, Amelia, he said, giving her one last look before disappearing into the quiet street. The cafe suddenly felt emptier than before. Amelia picked up the card, running her fingers over the embossed lettering. What was a billionaire doing in her little cafe at midnight? And why did it feel like this was only the beginning? For the next few days, Amelia tried to put the midnight encounter out of her mind. After all, what were the chances that a billionaire CEO would return to a small-town cafe tucked away on a quiet corner? She tucked Daniel Hayes' business card in the back of her notebook and went on with her routine, early mornings baking muffins, afternoons serving the regulars, and long nights cleaning after closing. But she couldn't shake the memory. The way his voice softened when he asked about her dreams. The way he looked around the cafe like it was more than 4 walls and a coffee machine. Then, 3 nights later, he came back. The knock was gentler this time, but her heart still skipped. Amelia opened the door and there he was again. No tie, his shirt sleeves rolled up, looking less like a CEO and more like a man carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. I know I'm pushing my luck, Daniel said, almost sheepish. But I was hoping for another one of your coffees. Amelia stepped aside. You must really like it. It's not just the coffee, he admitted as he walked in. It's the quiet, and you. She pretended to busy herself with the espresso machine so he wouldn't see her cheeks flush. A growing friendship. Over the next few weeks, Daniel became a secret regular. He'd show up after midnight when the city had gone still, and Amelia would unlock the door for him. Sometimes he ordered black coffee, sometimes a latte if he wanted something smoother. And sometimes, he asked for nothing, just sat in the corner booth while Amelia cleaned up, talking about everything but business. He told her about his childhood in Chicago, about how his father had built Hayes International from scratch and how Daniel had been handed the reins too young. She told him about her mother in Ohio, who called every Sunday, and her younger brother serving in the Marines. Their conversations stretched longer each night, until 2 strangers from different worlds began to feel like old friends. But Amelia never forgot who he was. She had Googled him one evening after closing, confirming what she already suspected. He was worth billions, his name tied to skyscrapers, private jets, and headlines. She wondered why a man like that would spend time in her modest cafe when he could be anywhere in the world. The first conflict. One Friday night, a storm rolled in. Thunder rattled the windows as Daniel walked in, dripping rain from his coat. He looked different that night, tense, distracted. Rough day, Amelia asked, handing him a towel. You could say that, he muttered, running a hand through his wet hair. The board wants me to push through a merger that'll cost thousands of people their jobs. They're looking at numbers. I'm looking at faces. Amelia poured his coffee, her eyes searching his. So what are you going to do? I don't know, he admitted. For once in my life, I don't know. The storm outside mirrored the storm inside the cafe. For the first time, Amelia saw the cracks in his polished armor. He wasn't the unshakable CEO the world saw on TV. He was a man torn between duty and conscience. She reached across the counter, her fingers brushing his hand. Sometimes doing the right thing isn't about numbers. It's about sleeping at night. Their eyes locked, and for a moment, the thunder outside faded. But just as quickly, he pulled back, finishing his coffee in silence. When he left, he didn't leave his usual smile behind. A surprise visit. The following week, Amelia got the shock of her life. She was serving the morning crowd, college kids and locals grabbing coffee before work, when a sleek black car pulled up. Out stepped Daniel Hayes in full CEO form, tailored suit, polished shoes, and a small entourage trailing behind. The room went silent as people recognized him. Amelia nearly dropped a tray. "Morning, Amelia," he said with a charming smile, as if walking into her cafe at noon with reporters outside was the most natural thing in the world. "Thought I'd try your coffee in daylight." Her cheeks burned as whispers spread through the cafe. She quickly made his drink and handed it over, trying not to meet the curious stares of her regulars. Before leaving, Daniel leaned in and said softly, "Dinner tonight. My driver will pick you up." Amelia froze. This wasn't the quiet Daniel she knew at midnight. This was the billionaire whose every move made the news. She wasn't sure which one was real. The dinner. That night, she found herself in a dress she hadn't worn in years, sitting across from Daniel in a rooftop restaurant overlooking New York City. The view was breathtaking, but Amelia felt out of place among the polished guests and waiters in tuxedos. Daniel, however, looked perfectly at ease. Too at ease. "You belong here more than you think," he told her gently. She shook her head. "I don't belong in this world, Daniel. I'm just a cafe manager." "You're more than that," he said, his voice firm. "You see people for who they are, not what they own." That's rare. For a moment, she wanted to believe him. But the stares from the other diners, the hushed whispers, reminded her of the gulf between their lives. By the end of the night, Amelia excused herself, her heart heavy. The breaking point. Days passed without a knock on the cafe door. Amelia told herself it was better this way. Their worlds didn't fit together, and pretending otherwise would only end in heartbreak. But one night, she found Daniel waiting outside as she closed up. No suit this time, just jeans and a jacket. His expression was raw, almost pleading. "I haven't stopped thinking about you," he admitted. "I tried to walk away, but I can't. You're the only part of my life that feels real." Amelia swallowed hard. "Daniel, you live in a world I'll never understand. Your life is headlines and stock prices. Mine is coffee cups and small-town regulars. How can that work?" "Because I don't want a life built on headlines anymore," he said. "I want something real. I want you." Her eyes stung, torn between fear and longing. "Then prove it," she whispered. "Choose people over profits. Choose what you told me matters." The decision. Weeks later, news broke. Daniel Hayes had pulled out of the controversial merger, protecting thousands of jobs. The media painted him as reckless, the board called him naive, but Daniel didn't care. For the first time in years, he felt free. That night, he returned to Moonlight Brews. Amelia was wiping down the counter when he walked in, holding 2 cups of coffee instead of 1. "Figured I'd bring you one for a change," he said with a grin. She laughed through tears as he handed it to her. "You actually did it." "I did," he said softly. "Because you reminded me that some things matter more than numbers. Like this. Like us." And for the first time, Amelia didn't feel like a cafe manager serving a billionaire. She felt like a woman standing beside a man who had chosen her world, not despite it, but because of it. Epilogue. Months later, the cafe was busier than ever. Daniel often came by in the mornings now, blending in with the regulars, his sleeves rolled up as he helped Amelia wipe tables or pour coffee. People whispered, but Amelia didn't care. She had once thought her life was too small for someone like him. But in the end, Daniel Hayes didn't need a bigger world, he needed a truer one. And he found it in a cafe that stayed open just long enough for one last coffee.